Please welcome.
The other mortgage in your life, that's called health insurance, thanks to the years of Obama and the cheating and scamming of insurance and the medical professionals, not the doctors per se, but the medical profession in general. That's the health insurance plan, and I've got a solution for you that I'm personally using. Mark Dunn at New Era Health Plans. He's got a website, ourplanrocks.com. Ourplanrocks.com, as simple as that sounds, ourplanrocks.com. He saved us about $500-600 a month, which was nearly half of our premiums. Our deductible was a little bit lower, but our coverage is a little bit broader. In other words, one of the problems I was running into on the Obamacare exchanges was not being able to find a doctor, I don't know, within 20 miles of the perimeter. Dahlonega was not real attractive from Buckhead to have to travel that far to find a doctor for certain types of specialties. So we decided we needed a new plan. So we went to ourplanrocks.com with Mark, who has been a sponsor of our radio programs off and on for a while, and gave him a shot. And ultimately, we've been there for now over a couple of years. So ourplanrocks.com, partly making the realestateexperts.com show possible. I'm getting a lot of calls from people who are in areas that have been really hot. Roswell, Alpharetta, Cumming, even Lawrenceville, which has been a hot spot. Decatur, Stone Mountain has recovered nicely. Even Buckhead and Sandy Springs, Marietta, East Cobb. Areas that are what I'd call the bread and butter of a metro Atlanta real estate market that do really well. There are others, but those are the ones that come to mind where we didn't see listings expiring or being withdrawn at a very big rate. Just 6 to 12 months ago, there was very few listings that sat on the market for 3 to 6 months, and the agent failed to sell the home. And I've always described that phenomenon in housing in a stage called a monkey could sell real estate. In other words, my skills and experience, having sold 5,000 plus homes, weren't really that in demand here in the last few months or years, because you could stick a sign up, put a price somewhere in the hemisphere of value, especially if you did it according to Zillow, which was undervaluing everything, and put in the MLS and press enter on a keyboard, and buyers showed up. That has ended. It's over. And because of that, we've had an influx, as we always do. I've seen 3 or 4 cycles of this now in my 20-plus year housing career, where agents flood the market. All the people who are clerks at 7-Eleven, never studied in school, never applied themselves, never tried, never will try. They all get a real estate license and leave their $9 an hour job to get rich selling houses. And they get in and they sell 9 houses and they make more money in a year than they ever thought they could earn in a decade. And I'm being a little facetious here, although I'm not far off. And lots of people get harmed. Lots of people leave equity on the table. And lots of people get stuck as they are now with a real estate agent that doesn't know what the hell to do when the market starts shifting. And so I'm getting these calls from people in areas that I have not had the privilege of speaking to in the last couple of years, because they haven't had to worry about struggling to sell a home. I had one such call in Roswell this week. And I sat down with this person's house for over an hour and a half on the telephone, and most real estate agents would say, well, I don't have time to spend an hour and a half. I just want to book the appointment and go out and meet with them. I really didn't care if I booked the appointment. I did, but I was more interested in the lesson that I was about to learn, because it looked like this agent had done fairly well with advising them on preparing their home for sale, taking professional photos, and pretty much doing it the right way. On the surface. Now, she made a lot of mistakes, but here's the problem. I'm going to give you some stats in a minute that are pretty alarming. But as I started talking back and forth and really digging into this, I thought this is less about me getting a listing at this point and me figuring out what's happening in the damn market, because it's easy when I've not been involved in a listing that's having a little struggle here or there to look at someone else who has, and especially if they've done a pretty good job of the basic levels of marketing, it's easy for me to look at it and figure it out because I'm not in the middle of it. I'm not attached to it. There's no emotion. I'm just looking at it for the first time, and it's easier to detect what was wrong. And what was wrong is the agent didn't shift fast enough. The agent didn't give the best advice. They had the seller do things and spend money that would have better been used in staging or other things. You know, a lot of people go in and they take an owner's approach to selling a house. They go, we should put a new roof on. This roof is old. I have found, unless we're dealing with the rare engineer buyer, that most buyers don't care if you've put a new roof on your house, as long as it's not leaking. If it's leaking, it's a problem. But if it's an old roof and it needs to be replaced, why does $5,000 or $10,000 make any sense? Because you're not going to get that back in the sale. The buyer doesn't care. What the buyer cares about is when they do an inspection and find that the roof is about to go bad, then they care. But it's far enough along the process, then you can negotiate with them. Most buyers at that point will agree to a credit for the roof because they'll push it out as long as they can because they're tapped out trying to buy into the house. As long as they know they're getting some value or some money to set aside, they don't care. So instead of spending $8,000 to replace the roof, you might give them a $3,000 or $4,000 credit, and you'll get that back in the process. But these agents, they come in and they recommend all this, I'm a really responsible owner crap. And what ends up happening is you spend all this money. In this case, these people spend tens of thousands of dollars on things they didn't need to do. I could have probably saved them $30,000 or $40,000, spent $2,000 in staging, and had the same effect or better, literally. Because there's something about real estate agents that most people don't contemplate when they go to choose an agent. It's called the DISC profile. It's something Keller Williams has done for a long time in hiring its agents, but I do what I call a DISC profile on steroids. I have an entire process that's been developed not just by me, but by other people that I know and trust in the industry that know what they're doing and know how to recruit agents. And if an agent is not what we call a high D, highly dominant personality, highly driven personality, they cannot be a listing agent for our company. It's that simple. So everybody that sends a resume, regardless of I don't care if they sold 90 homes last year, it doesn't matter to me. I want their DISC profile. I want to know where they're going to succeed in my company. Because if someone that has listened to my marketing or my advertising calls up and I'm not available and I put them with an agent, I don't want it to be the Mark Spain's process, which is Mark's done a great job, but I don't want it to be where it's just a revolving door of agents coming and going and cutting their teeth at your expense. I don't want that company. I've had it before and I don't want it ever again. That's what most people are doing in this industry. And so what people don't realize is that while I am a very good seller's agent, and I tell people this to qualify my statements, I'm not a good buyer's agent. I don't have the patience level. I don't have the personality style to do buyer's agency that well. That's why I have a team of buyer's agents. You don't want to work with me to buy a home. You want to work with me when you need analytical, logical reason injected into the transaction, which means if the buyer's agent's doing the work and I'm behind the scenes advising the buyer's agent, you have the best of both worlds. And as long as it's me advising the buyer's agent, you're fine. But if I put someone in between me that's not well qualified, you'll have the same awful experience with our company you'd have with anybody else. That's why I am right there, finger on the pulse with the buyer's agents. By contrast with sellers, when I take the DISC profile, I'm a 99 on the D. If anybody's understanding of the DISC profile and they've listened to me much on the radio, they understand that number really well. They're probably laughing at this point if you understand what the DISC profile means. There's 16 personalities in the world, and we all fit into one of those 16 boxes. We're all unique within those boxes, but we all fit in one of those categories. And there's 2 or 3 kinds of agents that make a great listing agent, meaning that there's 4 letters in DISC, and it's got to start with a D. There's very few agents. I get 50 resumes maybe in the last 3 or 4 months, 50 DISC profiles. I've probably seen 5 or 6 people that have a dominant D DISC profile, which means very few people can be a good listing agent. That doesn't mean they're not good agents, but they can't be good listing agents because they can't deal with the parts of the market that require you to mow through brick walls. Selling a home is selling it to a buyer in the first place, dealing with the psychology and the drama and the agents and the buffoonery of a real estate industry and market. And then it's selling it in the inspection. And then it's selling it in the appraisal. And then it's selling it in buyer's remorse. And then it's selling it again at closing. There's 4 or 5 times you have to sell a home, which means most agents give up the first time. They can't get it to contract because they don't have a driven personality. They're used to just spewing out pretty language, and people just love them and trust them, and that gets it done. It doesn't work that way when you're selling a house. So that's your first issue. If I were a seller and I wanted to interview agents, I don't even think I would do anything more than look at a marketing package and make the freaking agent take a DISC profile. You'd have to know how to read it to determine whether I even wanted to hire or talk to this agent or not. That's the problem most sellers have, is they don't hire an agent with a high D personality in the DISC profile model like we develop for our listing agents, my wife and me ultimately, and one other agent that works for us. And ultimately, that is the recipe for failure. Buyer's agents may be people you like, but they make crappy listing agents. And that's the mistake most sellers are making right now. And that's why there's so many homes expiring, over 100 a day in Metro Atlanta, 500 plus at the end of last month. And that's just within 25 miles of the north side of the perimeter. It's really double that if you take the whole market. It's pretty bad. The other thing I'm finding is in this snapshot in Roswell, where I spent an hour and a half with a seller really trying to figure out what went wrong, I determined that the market is substantially less voluminous year over year in July, August, and September of 2018 compared to 2017. And even worse, the inventory is now at a point, 6.9 months in that particular area that I looked at, within a middle range price, not lower, not higher, but middle range price, about 7 months. That means prices will fall unless that number changes quickly. And it probably isn't going into the holidays. So 7 months of inventory in a given market segment. And you have to measure a couple hundred homes active and sold to really get a good, reliable number. You can't just look at 30 homes, 20 sold, 30 listed or something like that. You got to look at a few hundred, and that's what we did. And then we looked at other scenarios to make sure that this replicated itself, to really determine that you can take this to the bank. North Fulton County as a whole has in the bread and butter marketplace, which is 400,000 to 700,000 range, right around that range, has about 6 to 7 months of inventory, and that's not counting off the market new construction we don't see. What does that mean? That means that basically the prices we saw in March or April when we had 2 or 3 months of inventory aren't sustainable. They're going to come back to where they were prior to March and April. That doesn't mean we've had depreciation year over year. That just means that the appreciation level we thought we had this year isn't going to stick. And then we have profit takers coming into the market who see the prices that some things have sold for and they think they're going to get it. So we have this excessive inventory. I don't know how that's going to pan out, but I don't think the pricing scenario has any potential anywhere in the market of getting any better. In fact, I think it'll get worse by 5% this winter, and I don't think it will recover during next spring. It will just stabilize, and we'll be sitting there until some economic event drives the prices up or down, which I think it's more likely to go down 5 to 10, 15% in certain market segments over the next few years than it is to go up compared to the peak of where we were late this spring, early this summer. Economy, 134,000 jobs added in September. Unemployment rate down to 3.7%. They expected 180,000 jobs, but all is good on the economic front. So that's a backstop for housing. Coming up next, an amendment that is toxic on the Georgia ballot you need to know about.